I've got with me on the call Daniel Fisher, who's AED's Senior Director of Government Affairs, and Brett Levanto, who is our Senior Manager of Government Affairs. We are going to quickly give you an overview of what Equipment Industry Action Week is all about, talk to you just very briefly about the political big picture, how things are shaping up in D.C. after the elections, run you through the issues that we're emphasizing this week, give you a sense of where things stand politically on Keystone, on revenues for the highway program, on the depreciation bonus and Section 179, and also on EPA's overreach on a number of issues that impact our markets, and then tell you what we need you to do to help this be a very successful action week for us. One administrative note at the outset here: if you're a live participant and you have questions, please type them in the message section of the GoToWebinar system, and we will try to address those as we move through the presentation. We're going to try to keep this very brief. We know your time is valuable. Give you just the minimum of information you need to know to be successful here as we move forward. So we're looking at certainly no more than half an hour, and likely much less than that. So talk to you about what Equipment Industry Action Week is. We've had great success in recent years with branded grassroots efforts on the AED front, and given where things stand on a number of our issues in this post-election environment, with Congress in town this week for a lame duck session, post-election lame duck session, we see an opportunity to move the needle and to try to motivate congressional action on a number of the issues that we've been working on for many months, and in some cases many years, that have such a direct impact on your markets and your costs of doing business. There are a number of very significant issues, the ones we're going to be talking about on this call, that Congress has either not acted on or kicked down the road, and we need to motivate action on all of them, we think, before the end of the year. So there are a number of members of Congress who are leaving, incumbents who are leaving, and that makes, we think, that there's something of a willingness in some cases to take some what may be considered to be difficult political votes, and again creates a political environment for some opportunity here. The bottom line message is that we demand certainty as an industry, as business leaders in this country. Kicking the can down the road, as Congress has been doing, is simply unacceptable. We can't afford to wait until next year for resolution of the outstanding tax issues, resolution of the highway issues, resolution of the Keystone issues, or for Congress to put the squeeze on the administration and start pushing back against the environmental overreach we're seeing. So big picture here, obviously we all know that the Republicans won big on Election Day. Economic issues, if you look at the polls, what voters cared about the most going into the elections, it was economic issues, it was the economy, and all the issues we're talking about here have a direct bearing on economic growth, on middle-class jobs, on the issues that we know voters were cared about and were kind of at front and center as they were going into the voting booth. That's the message we're trying to get up to Capitol Hill. The voters want you to act on these economic priorities, and here are some good ones to act on between now and the end of the year. The Republicans have taken over the Senate, and Mitch McConnell is going to be the Senate Majority Leader next year. We think that's a very good thing. McConnell, not only does AED have a good working relationship with him, he's also an institutionalist. He's known as a deal maker, and we think that he'll be a very good person to work with on a number of these issues. You've heard some talk recently about, from both sides coming out of the elections, about the need for compromise, message from the voters that they're sick of gridlock in Washington, D.C., they want action, and tax reform, highways, infrastructure are areas where we see some opportunity for actual compromise in Congress to actually get something done over the next few months and also in the next year. And part of our effort here, in addition to trying to motivate action between now and the end of the year, is to raise the visibility of all our issues going into the next Congress. We do think, and the reason that's so important is that we think there's going to be a very small window to get things done next year. I think I know those of you who are outside D.C. who I've spoken to get very frustrated by the political cycles we work in here, but the simple reality is that it's usually the odd-numbered years, the years where there's not a congressional election, not a presidential election hanging over everybody's heads, when there are the best opportunities to actually get things done on the policy front. And so we have a one-year window here going into next year to do to actually accomplish some things. We also think the Republicans are going to be willing to compromise and actually get things done because, quite frankly, the legislative or the electoral picture is somewhat bleak for them looking out to 2016. They've got a number of endangered senators from states where Obama has won at least once. And that puts them in a position where the Republicans are going to need to be able to show that they've accomplished something, that they have a track record, that they've been able to govern now that we've handed them the keys to the car. So the bottom line is that the lame duck is a great opportunity to get some things done, to restore some certainty to the issues that we consider to be important and that you told us are important for this industry. So without further ado, let's kind of quickly move in and start talking about the specific policy issues that we're emphasizing this week and what we need you to do. And I'm going to turn things over to Daniel Fisher, who is one of the lead lobbyists on the Keystone XL Pipeline efforts, kind of leading the construction industry coalition pushing for Keystone. Daniel, go ahead.
Thanks, Christian. The timing could not be more ripe for action on the Keystone XL Pipeline. Christian mentioned that during the campaigns, this past midterm campaigns, there were a lot of talk about economic issues, and Keystone was one of those economic energy issues that was really focused on in a lot of the races. So this is a top priority, I know, for the Republicans as they come into the majority. But before they come in the majority in the Senate, during lame duck, there's actually been action on Keystone. The Keystone XL Pipeline project has been pending for over 6 years. The Obama administration has delayed for one reason or the other, despite the fact that their own State Department has found that there will be job creation, there will be economic growth. The impact on the environment is very minimal if they were to build the Keystone XL Pipeline, but yet the administration is delaying on actually issuing that permit. AED has been leading construction industry coalition on the Keystone XL project, so it's really raised AED's visibility within the DC and the industry and on Capitol Hill as a leader on the Keystone project. Last week, the House approved legislation to approve the pipeline 252 to 161 with 31 Democrats supporting it, and this really is one of those action items that really couldn't be more timely. Tomorrow, the Senate is going to vote on S-2280, which is legislation to approve the Keystone XL Pipeline. Right now, word on the Hill is that they have 59 votes in the Senate. They need one more vote. They're targeting several different senators to get to that 60 votes to block a filibuster. So we really need action on that, and need those the equipment distributors to urge action on the Keystone XL Pipeline. You never know, Obama might veto it, but we need to force him to veto that. And if this doesn't get done over the next couple of weeks, then we're going to be focused on this in January. So.
Yeah, and a strong vote on this tomorrow, very significant, sends a very important political message, whether we're talking about getting this thing done this year and actually moving the president, or looking at it continuing into next year, because obviously the support for Keystone is only going to grow in the next Congress. Obviously important from a job creation standpoint, as Daniel mentioned, construction jobs. It's important from a manufacturing standpoint, important from a national security standpoint, obviously, when we see what's happening in the Middle East. And also the reason AED has made this such a top priority, and the reason we're playing a leadership role on this issue, is obviously because we're one of, if not the only, construction industry trade association in D.C. with members on both sides of the border. So we see this as one of those issues that is really good for our members in Canada and good for our members in the United States, good for the industry overall, and that's why we're emphasizing it. So the message there, contact the Senate and urge approval of S-2280, which is this legislation to push the Obama administration on Keystone. Shifting over to highways, I think we all know the situation with the Highway Trust Fund here. Highway Trust Fund is on life support, and it has been for quite some time. The revenues coming into the Highway Trust Fund are inadequate to cover the current expenditures. Current highway program is about $40 billion a year, generates roughly $2.5 billion in construction equipment market opportunity around the country. Big issue for AED. That's why we make this a top priority for our organization. Last summer, Congress kicked the can down the road yet again. They extended the authorization, and they provided money to keep the program running through the end of May 2015, which is good. They didn't let the program collapse. They got the message that would have been a terrible economic shock. But of course, we all know that contractors aren't going to go out and buy new equipment based on the possibility that Congress is going to do these short-term extensions. We need long-term certainty. We need the revenues sufficient to pay for a good, well-funded, predictable 6-year highway bill. What that means is that Congress has to come up with $100 billion in new revenues, somehow, money to pay for a new 6-year highway bill. The goal right now, the focus is not on trying to get a highway bill done between now and the end of the year. The goal is to try to get Congress to do something on the revenue front, to whether it's raising the gas tax or finding some other way to put $100 billion into the Highway Trust Fund over the next 6 years to make sure that the money is there to pay for a 6-year bill when we get into this authorization cycle next year. So again, we're not trying to, it would be overly ambitious and I think inconceivable to think that they do a 6-year highway bill at the end of this current Congress. There hasn't been enough focus on that at all. But the real focus here is getting the revenues into the Highway Trust Fund. Gas prices are lower than they've been in 4 years. This is an opportune time. If Congress is going to do something on the gas tax, now is the time to do it, to provide those revenues, get the revenues in place to ensure predictability for this industry, for contractors, for workers, for state transportation planners, for AED members, and all the other industries that are supplying the construction industry. So what we're asking you to do here, contact Congress, tell them to do something to solve the Highway Trust Fund revenue problem. Whether the gas tax increase is the simplest solution from a policy standpoint, certainly potentially difficult from a political standpoint, but what these members, what the people on Capitol Hill have to hear from business leaders around the country is that there is a support for a gas tax. You guys are not just suppliers to the construction industry, you're heavy users of the road, you consume a lot of fuel, and it's important that you make that point when you call that this isn't just about your markets. You understand you're users of the system. We need good roads to make the economy function. We need to raise the gas tax to come up with money to pay for this program. So that's the ask on the Highway Trust Fund side. Capital investment incentives, huge, huge issue for this industry. And again, this is an issue that AED has been prioritizing all year. And when we talk about the capital investment incentives, we're talking about the depreciation bonus and Section 179. I think everyone knows that the depreciation bonus, which had been 50%, expired at the end of 2013, and the Section 179 expensing levels dropped down to $25,000 that you could expense as long as you don't buy more than $200,000 worth of stuff. There are various proposals floating around out there at the moment. The Senate has an extenders bill that's been that was introduced at the beginning of the year that would reinstate the depreciation bonus at 50% for 2014 and 2015 and raise Section 179 to $500,000 with a $2 million phase-out cap. The House has actually passed, that bill has not actually passed the Senate, though. The House has actually passed legislation to permanently set the Section 179 expensing level at $500,000 with a $2 million phase-out and to make 50% depreciation bonus permanent. So the solution, what may happen is someplace between nothing and what you see on paper there, or what you see on the PowerPoint. The House and Senate, we know, are talking about a tax extenders bill. At this point, those conversations, and we've been making calls over the last several days to get all the best political intelligence and having conversations. But what we know is that there are conversations taking place, and that if they're going to do anything between now and the end of the year, substantive policy-wise, it's going to be something on the tax extenders package. Our goal is to make sure that, number one, the tax extenders package is a priority, and number two, if there is a tax extenders package, that it does include depreciation bonus and Section 179. It would be great, obviously, to see the depreciation bonus and Section 179 increases made retroactive to the beginning of the year, so that people who have taken risks and made purchases this year can take advantage of those tax incentives. Again, all of this is kind of hanging out there with a big question mark, and no one is sure what's going to happen. But our objective, again, is to try to make these things part of the conversation, ensure that the tax extenders bill includes our two priority tax provisions here. I will say that there are some political forces blowing against the tax extenders package. Given the fact that the Republicans are going to control the Senate next year, we have heard from some Republicans who would rather punt this issue into January and let the Republicans do it. This way they wouldn't have to negotiate with Harry Reid on the contents of that tax package. But our goal is to get this thing done by the end of the year and to make sure that it includes these two priorities. So it's imperative that, that you contact Congress, let them know. And this is one, I think, where our members have had such personal experience with these two provisions and really can be very articulate in explaining why depreciation bonus is a good thing for dealers when they're adding equipment to rental fleets, why it's a good thing for customers who are buying new equipment, and why Section 179 is a very good way to incentivize smaller contractors to purchase new equipment. So again, the push is on. Urge Congress to make depreciation bonus and Section 179 part of that extenders package. Daniel, back to you on EPA overreach.
Yep. So thanks, Christian. What we've seen over the last couple of years is that the administration is unable to get particularly its environmental policy priorities through the House and Senate. So what they're doing is they're turning to executive action, the rulemaking process, and executive orders to try to implement their agenda. And we've had really the epitome of this circumventing of Congress has happened in the EPA. And we've got a couple proposals out there that would be particularly detrimental to industry. One is this Waters of the U.S. proposal would dramatically expand the jurisdiction of the EPA, effectively would make the agency the nation's chief land manager by expanding the Clean Water Act. And really any ditch, any seasonal stream, any storm runoff ditch, anything like that could now be subject to Clean Water Act jurisdiction if this rule were to be made final. So the House has already passed legislation to prevent the EPA from going forward with this particular regulation, and we'd like to see the Senate do the same. And AED has actually already submitted comments to the EPA detailing our concerns with this particular rulemaking and the impact it could have on development throughout the country. So that's one example of EPA overreach that we've seen. Another is the proposed rule to threaten to curtail greenhouse gas emissions, which we believe will raise costs on consumers and businesses, and it will effectively shut down the coal industry, which of course is a major market for many equipment distributors throughout the country. Again, what we're looking for is Congress to either use its oversight authority to really highlight these rulemakings and to also enact legislation that will prevent the EPA from moving forward on these. And so we think that the lame duck is actually a great opportunity to at least do some messaging on this and to make sure EPA moderates its views on these issues. We've seen this work in the past on coal ash legislation, where even though Congress wasn't able to pass a final bill preventing the EPA from moving forward on fly ash regulations, they were able to, the outcry on the Hill was significant enough to actually moderate the final rules. So we really want to urge Congress to prevent the EPA from implementing its radical environmental agenda. Another rulemaking that could come down, of course, anything good, the EPA likes to get its hands on it, and we're really working to prevent the EPA from regulating shale energy development. And so we anticipate possible rulemaking in that area. So really what we want is Congress to put a check on the EPA and really prevent them from doing some of these implementing their agenda that could impact your primary markets.
Yeah, and I guess just to emphasize two things, that the waters of the U.S. issue that Daniel spoke about first, this is an issue that obviously we're very concerned about. One of the reasons, the primary reason we're concerned about it is because so many of our customer markets are concerned. You talk to the mining guys, the aggregate guys, the construction guys, the agriculture guys, across the board, uniformly, everybody is terrified of this EPA waters of the U.S. rule, because anybody who has any sort of retention pond, any sort of water on their property is all of a sudden going to find themselves under a new EPA microscope. So it's a big issue for your customer industries, big impact on development, mining, energy, et cetera. And the other thing, Daniel's point, whether or not Congress has anything legislative they can do on this between now and the end of the year, our goal is to raise the visibility, express concern, and put a lot of wind into the sail going into the next Congress, so members of Congress in both parties understand that there's a lot of concern out there about what EPA is doing. Okay, let's see. We are going to what you need to do. I'm going to turn things over to Brett, who's been coordinating a lot of the outreach and communications activities related to AED Action Week. Brett, over to you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much. So this is really where the rubber hits the road of Action Week itself. And to do that, we've kind of marshaled the resources that we always have available to us. And if you're familiar with seeing member alerts that come out of the Washington office and our AED news pieces on what's happening in the DC area and what we can do to try and affect what's going on Capitol Hill, you'll know that one of our great resources for organizing grassroots action is our Action website, www.aedaction.org. So what we've done, and you can see Christian's actually bringing it up on the screen, is we've used the resources available to us through that website to build a central location for everything related to Legislative Action Week. So the page that's coming up in front of you now, which you will see the web address for plenty of times over the next 4 days, I promise you, is our central repository of all things related to this week, the issues that we're focusing on, our agenda with every daily focus, and some background on the overall issue and why it's important to AED and to you and your business. And then plenty of links and resources for you to actually be able to take action. And at the very bottom, we've also got our general instructions for how we'd like our members to get involved. You're already, if you're listening to this, you're already hitting that first wicket, which is to join or watch the Kickoff webinar and get things moving, which we very much appreciate. And then stepping off into the next few days, we have a daily focus each day that we've been going over the issues for you here in the webinar. And here on the page, you can see that there are ways to specifically take action on each one. So tomorrow's going to be a big day for us. We've got votes coming up in the Senate on okaying Keystone XL, and we really want to help push that through and have a great start to the Action Week. If you come to this page and you look on it, you can see click here to tell Congress to get Keystone XL approved. If you click that link, it's going to take you into our pre-developed action letter that most of the work's been done for you, but we still left some flexibility for you to add some specific comments to the bottom so that you could personalize the letter. You could add any specific information related to what you'd like to say about your business and the potential impact that it could have for you or your state. And then all you have to do, and we won't go through this step by step for you right now, but if you type in your contact information into that Your Information section on the left side of the screen, the letter will automatically populate your senator's contact information, and then all you have to do is click Submit or Send on the bottom of the page, and that letter is going to be on its way to both of your members of the Senate so that they know your position on Keystone, and they can take that with them into the chamber when it's time to vote. That letter obviously is focused specifically on the Senate because of what's going on there, but the rest of our letters are all queued up to go to both your House and Senate representatives, your members in both houses of Congress. We also have put together some other resources for you. We developed some draft letters to the editor on each issue, which Christian's not going to open for you. I invite you to go take a look for yourself and see exactly what we've got for you there. We can also help figure out where you need to send that information. So if you're really hot to send something into your local paper and get some publication action going, let us know and we can definitely help you with that. And also we put together a planned social media campaign for the entire week. 3 or 4 tweets a day focused on our key issues. They're all set up, already meet the character limits that Twitter imposes on us. So all you have to do is copy and paste into your composed message section of your tweet. You can send out our message, which includes a link back to this main page, so that everything's really right there for you. And if you have a social media department or if you have people who work that in your office, I encourage you to share that page with them as well, so that way they can get that message out for us. So really the next step, I mean, everything's there for you. We're going to keep the page updated throughout the week. This webinar will be available on it as soon as we get it posted and available for download. And the key thing that you can do not only is to personally visit the page each day and make sure that you're clicking on those action alerts and you're sending messages to Congress, but get that web page in the hands of your employees, of your allies, your colleagues in the construction equipment industry. Make sure that we give it the widest possible dissemination possible. And it really is true. If you look at the bottom of the slide that's in front of you right now, it says take 5 minutes to support our industry's policy priorities. We have put this all together for you so that everything's in one place, and really and truly with 5 minutes of investment on each of these days, you can send a strong message to Congress, and the association can speak with one voice to make it very clear in these waning days of the 113th Congress what action needs to be taken to serve the American people and the construction equipment industry. And as always, if you have any questions, Kristen, I think if you advance one more slide, we'll throw our contact information up there. And most importantly, at the bottom, you're always welcome to email us directly, but if you give that Washington office phone number a call, we're all here for you, and we'll make sure we get you what you need.
Absolutely excellent, Brett. Yeah, and this all matters. I mean, the secret to success. You guys are the strategic bombardment. Daniel and I are going to be up on Capitol Hill all week in meetings, pushing this agenda. And these letters and these emails and the calls you're going to make to support this all matter. They all are pushing in the right direction, and it's all mutually reinforcing. So we appreciate everyone being on the call. Brett, do you see any questions come in on the question line?
No, it looks like we did such an excellent job covering our material. We were crystal clear.
Crystal clear. Okay. So the bottom line is this. You know where to get a hold of us. The Washington office number is 703-739-9513, 703-739-9513. You got our email addresses there. We are standing by. We'll provide any support you need. If you want any specific information, as Brett said, information about submitting letters to the editor, anything else we can do to be helpful to help you get the word out about these issues, we look forward to working with you. And thank you for your support.